Good evening and welcome to the News Hour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas GK. Viewers, Prime Minister Modi is in Ukraine. This morning he reached the capital Kyiv after an overnight train journey aboard a Polish train called Train Force 1. He's in Kyiv on the invitation of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. 2.5 years into the Ukraine war, this moment is historic as the Prime Minister is one of the very few leaders of significance around the world who has warmed relations with both Putin and Zelenskyy, while India remains amongst the only countries that has treated Russia and Ukraine in non-adversarial terms.
हम पहले दिन से ही पक्षकार रहे हैं और हमारा पक्ष है शांति का। हम बुद्ध की धरती से आते हैं जहां युद्ध को कोई स्थान नहीं होता। हम महात्मा गांधी की धरती से आते हैं जिसने पूरे विश्व को शांति का संदेश दिया है। एक्सेलेंसी, मैं आज जब यूक्रेन आया हूं तब मैं 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की भावना को लेकर के आया हूं और 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की भावना मानवता से प्रेरित है और मैं आज यूक्रेन की धरती पर शांति का संदेश लेकर के आया।
As the world is looking at India as a messenger of peace, opposition has hit out over the Prime Minister's Ukraine visit, drawing the jibe that there are enough conflict zones in India to visit. TMC MP Jawahar Sarkar even went a step ahead and tweeted pictures of all the world leaders who saw a downfall in their political career after Zelenskyy's alleged quote-unquote cursed handshake and predicted the same fate for Prime Minister Modi. Meanwhile, the BJP's hit back and countered the Congress's charge, with Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri claiming that the government cannot stop its engagements because of petty domestic politics. Listen into the war of words.
Question which everybody in the world is asking him, not just people in India. Even in the world, people are laughing at him that your own country, Manipur, is burning and you are going around the world trying to establish peace. Please go to Manipur first.
Why hasn't the Prime Minister found time to go there? I think in that sense, it's almost as if the Prime Minister frankly does not know what the hell is happening in Manipur, right? And a clueless Prime Minister is not something we can afford.
And I don't want to get into a discussion on who's playing domestic politics and trivializing issue. Democratically elected head of government, third time elected, okay? Yes, it's a solid support of the Indian state. For him to be calling for peace, I think is a very positive thing in the global context.
Priyank Kharge would probably do well to comment on what is happening in the state of Karnataka. He's after all a senior leader from there. So therefore, probably his statement is to just reflect the critical crisis in the state of Karnataka in the Congress party and its leadership.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining us for more on this, we have Dr. Ajay Lok, national spokesperson of BJP. Karan Verma, author, is with us. Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst, is also with us. Professor Monojit Mandal, political analyst, is also joining us on the broadcast. Let me ask Professor Monojit Mandal, at this point of time, the fact is that the Prime Minister is perhaps one of the few world leaders, and also, of course, as countries, India and Ukraine, India and Russia, perhaps, in a unique relationship where we have close ties, neither side is seen as an adversary. At a moment like this, is it really necessary to come up with these kind of political comments? Right. You have certain political leaders comparing it to Manipur and why the Prime Minister has not gone there. You have others who are saying that, look at the bad luck that all those who have gone to Ukraine, and your party's Member of Parliament and leader Jawahar Sarkar saying so. Is this really in good taste?
No, I think as far as my knowledge goes, I think when it comes to the foreign policies, Trinamool Congress as a party will remain strongly behind the government of India, because that has remained the stance of the party. Individual comments here and there, I do not think will really matter. Yes, the issues inside the country will be raised by the opposition for any responsible opposition. Yes, the Prime Minister did not go to Manipur. Yes, the Prime Minister did not or could not deliver justice to the victims of Manipur. That's a fact. But nevertheless, when it comes to these international territories, international issues, I think all political parties should be speaking in the same voice, and also will expect the government to be more forthcoming and taking all the opposition on board, as they did in case of the Bangladesh crisis. I think that was a real gesture from the side of the government. I think on these issues there should not be any kind of, I think, meme or politics that is our concern. Yes, the problems within the country are very much there, and BJP is unable to solve the problem, including the Prime Minister. As I mentioned, one of the major issues in Manipur, and the people of Manipur, they are still looking for justice.
Just come to Manipur at 1 minute, but have you seen the tweet of Jawahar Sarkar, what he has said on this issue, sir? Have you seen what TMC MP Jawahar Sarkar has said? If you want, I can read out his tweet for you, where he raises a very serious question on various world leaders who lose power.
I've listened to you.
So should action be taken against Mr. Jawahar Sarkar if that is the stated policy of the TMC? Simple question.
I do not think that is in good taste. I don't know. The Trinamool Congress party will decide on that if that's a very serious issue. I think he has made a tweet. I think there are bigger issues involved, as he could rightly point out in the first debate. I think all of us are now concerned with the problems that are at hand, the problems of the crime against women, whether in Bengal or across the state or the country. I think all in the Trinamool Congress party, as like any common citizens of the the country, will look for justice for this particular victim and all the victims across the state, the country, whether it is in Hathras or in case of Brij Bhushan and many others.
Okay, Dr. Ajay Alok, it is concern about crime for women. What's happened in West Bengal is concerning, and therefore what's happened in Manipur should also be of concern, and thereby the question that perhaps arises from several political parties as to why is there time for Ukraine but not Manipur. Please respond to Professor Mandal.
See, I would just like to suggest opposition that you should speak only about the things which you know. Don't speak the things you don't know. You ran away from parliament when Manipur was being discussed, when it was being answered. You boycotted the parliament, and you have the courage to say that you don't have time to visit Manipur. When we are having discussion on Manipur, the whole opposition boycotted. And the same opposition, when the Delhi bill came, all of them gathered. What was important, Manipur or Delhi bill? So your duplicacy and hypocrisy, the whole nation knows. Today, Prime Minister is the only world leader, I'm again mentioning, only world leader who shares equal and healthy relationship with both Zelenskyy and Putin. And the world is having a hope that maybe Modi can do some magic, because at some places logic do not work. Magic works. And if that magic works and the war is somehow handled well, what is giving you a problem? And you are equating Ukraine visit to this Manipur visit. I mean, have you guys lost it completely? This is such a delicate matter. 1 month back, he has visited Russia. In spite of all the odds, in spite of US and all of the European Union and every nation condemning it, criticizing it, and today he is visiting Ukraine.
Respond to that, Tehseen.
Central Asia, what is
Tehseen, when the matter was being discussed in Parliament, opposition ran out of Parliament. And now you want to again raise the same issue. Please respond to Ajay Alok.
Madhav, at the onset, let me wish my Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, all the best in Ukraine. I agree with the Professor. Whatever our internal differences with the BJP, we hope Prime Minister Modi succeeds in Ukraine, because in his success lies India's success. So we are one with the Prime Minister. Point number one. Point number two, I agree with Ajay Alok. Very few times I agree with the BJP. The Prime Minister did meet the Russian President earlier on. He's now meeting Zelenskyy. Deft diplomacy. He went to the memorial for the children but did not mention Russia. Zelenskyy, in my opinion, last month when Prime Minister hugged Putin, made statements that were not presidential-like. Yet the Prime Minister's balanced it well. We've gifted Ukraine, other things. So I think that is good. We are the West looks at India as a counter to China. Yet Russia-Chinese nexus, we have to maintain our relations with China. He's walking a tightrope. He's doing a good job. We got to support where it matters. The problem is this, that the BJP brings international politics into domestic politics for its political gains, and then they play victim. Let me just give you 2 examples and I will end here. It's not the first time that we are doing the balancing act. India's always done it. You remember, Madhav, when you covered the nuclear deal, where India signed a 1-2-3 agreement and was the only nation in the world that got an exception of not being a signatory to NSG. The BJP, along with the left, tried to topple the government. and they did domestic politics. My appeal to the BJP is don't do domestic politics. We stand by the Prime Minister. We want him to succeed. We even want him to succeed in Israel and Palestine. So don't come here and do domestic politics, because you're so used to doing domestic politics, you play victim card. We hope the Prime Minister succeeds. We will be critical of the Prime Minister because that is my duty to be critical. I would fail in my duty if I'm not critical. But please, we hope for his success on foreign shores.
Karan Verma, would you like to respond to that allegation of Tehseen that it's BJP that links domestic politics with foreign affairs and not the other way around? Is he correct?
So, Madhav, I largely agree with what Tehseen said, barring the last point that you just made. I don't think the BJP does politics about it. In fact, as you read out the tweet from the West Bengal minister, it's the opposition that tries to bring in domestic issues every time the Prime Minister is paying a visit to a foreign country. So that is the problem here. Let's keep them aside. I mean, I agree with Tehseen on that domestic issues are different from foreign issues, and foreign issues affect our lives as much. I mean, today when the Prime Minister visited Russia last month and talked about the international north-south transport corridor, it affects each one of us. When the Prime Minister buys oil from Russia, it affects us because it affects the food on our table. I mean, the prices would have skyrocketed had the Prime Minister not taken that call at that point of time. Again with Ukraine, post-war, there are a lot of construction contracts, lots of things. And let's remember this, Ukraine was our strategic partner for sunflower oil even before the war took place. So, you know, Ukraine means a lot to us. Russia means a lot to us. Yes, Tehseen is right. The Prime Minister is walking a tightrope and we need to back him. Rather than be irresponsible and bring in Manipur and other issues every single time. Manipur has its own place, which we can discuss threadbare. But right now, let's be behind the Prime Minister, who is doing a stellar job. Today, India is sticking its neck out and saying, yes, we are going to stand for ourselves first. And of course, we are going to try to bring peace later. But yes, we are going to stand for ourselves first. That's a big departure from the yesteryears. Tehseen said that it's a continuation of the old. I don't think so. I remember those days when India, in its bid to keep its relations with Russia close, always neglected Poland and Ukraine. In fact, the Prime Minister is the first Prime Minister since 1992, ever since Ukraine is formed after the fall of Soviet Union, who's visited Ukraine. So Ukraine and Poland have long been neglected because of our proximity to Russia. Today, the Prime Minister is setting it straight. We are going to maintain good relations with all. Rather than keeping a distance from all, which was the non-aligned movement, we are now keeping close relations with all.
Okay,
so that,
Professor Mandal wants to respond to you on that. Professor Mandal.
No, I think when it's very well to talk about Prime Minister's visit and success in Russia and in Ukraine. But let us also acknowledge that the Prime Minister and the government of India have failed in case of Bangladesh, the most, the closest friend of ours in resisting China. You know that the kind of politics that China is playing through Bangladesh and trying to do. We also have to be critical about that. And I completely agree with my friend Tehseen when she said that these issues should not be used for domestic political dividends. These are issues of external, international politics, and we should have one single voice on that. If when there is failure, especially in case of Bangladesh, that needs to be acknowledged at the same time, because that was a real failure. India government should have acted earlier and should have done what they could have to support this friendly government in Bangladesh.
What should they have done?
That also has to be acknowledged as well.
What should they have done, according to you, Professor Mandal? Because there are those who say that if the government had intervened, it would have been seen as interfering in their internal democracy.
Then what they are doing in Ukraine now? Ukraine is also ravaged. I think more ravaged than Bangladesh was. Ukraine has been facing this war for more than 2 years. So what they are doing now, visiting
a war-ravaged country and what they can do to defend a friendly government, they are two very different things, don't you think, Professor Mandal?
I'm not saying that defend. No, I'm not saying that defend means you to do what we had to do in 1971. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there could have been talks, there could have been diplomatic channels opening with other players. I mean, you know that two big players are there in Bangladesh. One is USA and the other is China. So I think somewhat USA is a very friendly country with India. The India should have opened that channel.
Dr. Ajay Alok opening the channel with the United States, and also, of course, critics have said that when it comes to Maldives, even in some cases of Sri Lanka, perhaps India's diplomatic success within the neighborhood itself has been wanting. Pakistan, China, of course, have been historic issues, but within the neighborhood, the handling of the immediate neighborhood, there are questions. Dr. Ajay Alok.
Look, I don't know from what prism this opposition people judges our foreign policy. Today, when United Nations General Secretary says that all visits by the foreign heads and dignitaries should pave a way for a Ukraine crisis, and he's referring to Prime Minister Modi's visit. They say that we have failed Bangladesh, we have failed Maldives. Maldives is today increasing its ties with India. We have increased the aid. Now, this is a peculiar problem. Bangladesh, what has happened, is definitely of our concern because of still 8.5% Hindus living there who are an ethnic minority, and they're being cleansed. But they won't speak about that. What Bangladesh has taken over is the same Razakar army has taken over, the same radicals has taken over, and it's a threat for India, but they won't tell of that, they won't think of that, they won't speak of that. What Pakistan is doing to us by constantly sending us terrorists, and what we have been seeing in Jammu, and we have been trying to control that. Now, when we take an action, against Pakistan, they will say, don't get your foreign policy and get dividends in India. What do you mean? We should give our land like what Nehru did.
Tehseen Poonawalla, why do we mince words? Why do we mince words when what's happening there? In fact, it's taken time for a lot of political parties, or even a parliament for that matter, to issue a statement. Political parties in opposition also going very slow. There's an allegation that's coming from the side of the BJP, whether this is some kind of extension of vote bank politics. What's going on?
With regards to which country?
Regards to what happened in Bangladesh, it took a lot of time, even the Congress party issuing a statement, took several days.
Correct. See. Bangladesh is one issue where the government, and I've said this on your show, the government and opposition is on the absolute same page. The problem is the BJP comes on national TV and talks something which is totally different. Every single leader, from Mamata Banerjee ma'am to Rahul Gandhi ji to Modi ji, has stood by Bangladesh, has stood by the people of Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina was a friend. But yes, there was a failure. When US last year started attacking Sheikh Hasina, Professor is right. We have excellent relations with US. Sheikh Hasina was our closest friend in our neighborhood. Did we try and do diplomacy to try and help her out, see her? There are diplomacy in a lot of things. With Maldives, today, yes, our relations are improving. But when the president got elected in Maldives, he got elected on a slogan, kick out India. What was our raw desk doing? Nepal, our raw desk was snoozing when they shut the border. You know what's happened. These are failures, and we're not taking it out of hatred.
Quick response, Karan. We're almost out. We're out of time, actually. Karan Verma, 20 seconds. Quick response.
So, you know, the last thing we want is India to get involved in deep waters when they have a lot of issues at home. The last time we did that was send a peacekeeping force in Sri Lanka, and we saw the repercussions of that when we lost our Prime Minister. So what's happened in Bangladesh, US would have not let its strategic interests go there. The St. Martin's Island means a lot to the US, and yes, we might have had our diplomatic channels with them, but they were not going to let go of that. What had happened in Bangladesh had to happen when you're in.
All right, from Ukraine to Bangladesh, it's been such a long journey in this one short debate. But Dr. Ajay Alok, Karan Verma, Tehseen Poonawalla, Professor Manojit Mandal, thanks so much for joining us this evening.